Cool. So we're, just to recap anyone who's watching, we're going to be doing our retro for the last 2 weeks for the design system team on the marketing side. And we just kind of went through and put down things that went well, things to improve on, and then we'll take some action items from there. So I went ahead and kind of broke these up into things that sounded similar, but obviously if anyone disagrees, just like jump in and feel free to change them. And I figured we could just walk through one by one and talk about them and see if there's anything we can take away. So the first one, computer's too hot. First one, welcome Tyler. Had a coffee chat with him. So that was from Sanmi. I don't think Tyler's on this call, but yeah, we're glad to have him. Next one is fast response and awesome collaboration with stakeholders on the CI/CD issue. Quick turnaround on announcements component, homepage CI/CD news developed in 3 days. Looks like there's a comment, +1 from Javi.
Yeah, the turnaround was just really fast, so props.
Yeah, huge shout out to Sami. Just got on board and immediately jumped into it. So well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good collab for sure. Things that went well. So refined our type stack, more design system components to work with, and good collaboration between UX and UI to get there. Added spacing section to the foundations, applied the UI kit to Figma wires to see how they worked. I grouped these all together because it felt like they were all just kind of wins for the new design system and the UI kit and getting things out there. So props to Steven. I know he had a big hand in that. Is he still on? Oh, there he is. Next one, worked on our roadmaps. We did. If anyone wants to elaborate on these, also just jump on in. Got data about IE users, 0.06% of 25 million users. In my opinion, we can ditch support for IE completely. That's cool. Sami, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yes. So actually, Javi contacted Javi, or I'm trying to remember his name right now.
Javi?
The person in charge of analytics.
Oh, so Shane Rice.
Shane,
Yeah.
yes. So we contacted Shane. Javi discussed with him, and he provided us a dashboard where we can always view the reporting. So Javi came back and discovered that we only have less than 14,000 users on Internet Explorer. And our platform is not even supporting Internet Explorer, so maybe we don't really have to worry about them. So using that data to get the percentage, we are only worrying about 0.06% of the users. That's very, very insignificant. It's so small. We don't really need to worry about them. So that gave me encouragement to do some research about what CSS framework do we want to use. So if we're going to be using Tailwind, I support it because they don't support IE, and it looks awesome for what we want to do. Yep.
Is that something we have, like as a team, have control over to say, like, we're not going to support IE anymore? Or is that like a larger conversation the company needs to have?
I think it's maybe a larger conversation, but at the same time, I would feel comfortable saying at least on, so by saying we're going to ditch support, it's really more of a, we're still going to try and do progressive enhancement. It's maybe that's not one of our, browsers that we test regularly. And in terms of frameworks, it would still work to some degree without that. It just wouldn't look as pretty. And that's maybe one side of it. Another side of it is on core funnel pages, maybe we don't use that particular framework that doesn't support IE, like our pricing page, for example, we might still need people to be able to buy an IE. But yeah, I think it's a good discussion to have with, stakeholders before we come to any decisions. But yeah, I think it's in general something that's relatively safe. And it also depends on the particular funnel, like, if we have government sector users or other core users that are in a certain funnel that need to have IE, then in that funnel, we would want to see, make sure that it's supported. But yeah, I think overall it's a pretty safe industry standard thing to do at this point.
Yeah, just to add some thoughts on that, I know that Microsoft is starting to not officially support IE anymore, so that's like something that we can go over. Also, if the product itself doesn't work in IE, that's kind of like another thing. But it's like, well, you know, like let's sign up and do everything in IE, only to then realize that the browser, I don't know. I think there's like an accessibility and like a, what does support actually mean? Because it's more nuanced than just like, oh, does that mean the page doesn't load at all? Like what do we mean by when we say support? So there's kind of a little bit of a more nuanced discussion we have to have there. But I think the point is like, let's give ourselves the tools that lets us build as fast as possible, that impacts the most amount of people as quickly as we can. And then we can worry about making sure that people don't get lost in the tracks in between. That's like my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line to like kind of what Javi just said. We could technically still support it, kind of what you just said, Brandon, that some government agencies or departments might actually need it, but we don't need to optimize for it. So we can still support to a degree, but it's like what Sammy said, like with the percentage that low, you know, I don't know how many people will be upsetting by never doing it, but we have to make sure that we kind of keep the lights on, so to speak. So if someone did show up on IE, then we're not, it's not just a complete washout for them.
Yeah, something else that I found was really interesting was that only the newest version of IE is what has a large percentage. After, if we start going like back, then the newest version, we start getting into double digit, and we're talking like double digit users. So like 22, 44, like that amount of users for 25 million hits. So it's like, well, yeah.
So we just have to find a very thin line of separating what we mean by fully supporting IE and not really supporting, but having a fallback option for what happens on IE. So I think that's the thin line we really need to define. So that when users with IE come in, at least they must see something. Then we can put a recommendation there that, oh, sorry, you have Internet Explorer, this website will work much more better on Google Chrome, something like that. So they can still see something, but they may not be able to get the full experience that they deserve using Internet IE. So we really need to work and adjust that very, very thin line so that we are supporting, but we are not really supporting. I think that would be something I would like to add.
Yeah, those are all really good points. That's awesome. I'm going to keep going here. So next thing is topic section, CMS collab, smooth application of the work in progress onto existing pages.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, sorry to just jump in.
No, go ahead.
Here, that I thought that our collaboration sessions between the design system team and the CMS team were very, very valuable. I think that working together as closely as we did prevented us from getting lost in the weeds when we're kind of finding things that weren't working or looking for new solutions. We just made some really quick and smart decisions together, and I think we'll be working again on similar projects as we start working on the blog.
Yeah, I just want to second that because it was super helpful to do some real world use cases with some of those elements and like get them on the page and talk about them and get them in a really good spot. And I enjoyed working with you. It was great. All right, I'm going to keep going. So things to improve on. So working with UX research and or having our own researcher / research methods to rely on. I wrote that one. I've been like fighting the research team for 2 weeks now, trying to get some stuff going. And there's just a disconnect happening between our team and their team about the approach and maybe best practices. And unfortunately, I think we're just to a point where there's an impasse and we're going to have to just stop working with them for now anyway, for this particular issue. So I've been talking with Michael about like possibly, he's thinking about bringing a researcher onto our team, but also we've been talking to him about various research methods we could use that like we could kind of ramp up on our own end. So not being so reliant on other teams. And so that's something I can add some action items down here, but just something to be aware of, like thinking, and it's probably more for Tina than anyone else, but just, you know, if there's any research you guys are interested in doing, we might just have to take it on ourselves and kind of be be the voice of our customers, because we're our as a company, we're more used to doing product-based research, and now we're trying to do marketing-based research, and they're just very different objectives, and there's just not a lot out there yet. So it's like starting from scratch almost. Number 2, UX operating a sprint ahead. It's on me. Nope, I think you're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. So the reason why I raised this was because of the time crunch we had on this last sprint. Actually, this is my first sprint, so I believe that things will get better. And I think Javier raised the same opinion maybe last week. So if the UX design can always be a sprint ahead of developers, it will be much more better, so that we have everything that we want finalized, including the verbiage of the content. Because right now, even on the content that I just finished, I still see a lot of conversation on the thread that some people are suggesting another type of verbiage. So I think all those stuff needs to be handled prior before the developers get into action. So if this UX can always be almost a sprint ahead, it will give us more time and flexibility to meet up with the deadline. That's why I noted that there.
Jess, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was just agreeing. That's something definitely we were aiming for. Lately, it's been a bit of a struggle. Unfortunately, I'm going to be off for the next 6 days, so it's not going to help anything. But maybe with the holidays, we can kind of catch up again when other people are off. I'll be on. But yeah, definitely want to aim for like a minimum a sprint ahead, preferably like a few sprints ahead or even a couple months ahead would be ideal. So we'll get there. The next one, long-term goal, vision alignment, technology side. Javi, I think that's you.
Mm-hmm. So I think our discussion about our roadmaps that we had yesterday were super, super insightful and super helpful, because we need to kind of figure out, like, when we say design system, what do we mean by that, and stuff like that. I think that's super helpful. I think on the technology side, there's still a little bit of murkiness in terms of like what that means in terms of how we're going to implement it. And I think right here, I listed a couple of different things that includes templating, the static site generator itself, and the JS framework conversation that are like the big elephants in the room for me personally. And I know people have different thoughts and opinions and different takes. And I just want to make sure that we're not just going to keep iterating 2 weeks at a time and then at some point realize that we have to start over because we like just picked a different technology stack at some point. So that's kind of like the concern that I have, is that we get a little bit too focused on the short term and then we just like forget that longer term goals are super important, and working towards something more so than just working hard is like important. So those are just things that I wanted to bring up. And I think it would be helpful to have everyone on the technology side just have those conversations and make sure that we can find some sort of alignment on that, at least within ourselves, and then talk to Michael about that, because I think that there's a lot of room of murkiness, and it's hard to start a design system work knowing that, all right, like we're going to have to switch stacks altogether at some point. So those are just things that I wanted to bring up.
So what would you say there are the action items we can take?
I think it's just like so I think for that, what we really need, and I think this is similar to like the CSS discussion, is that we just need to have a meeting with all the technical people and sit us all down and just talk about these kinds of things. Like the thing that the meeting we had yesterday was a perfect example of that, of just sitting everyone in the same room and getting people to talk about what they mean when they say these things. So
cool. All right, last one, unless anyone else had any comments on that. Last one is consider looming brand changes that are going to happen 6 to 12 months. Bobby, I think that's you also.
I had a coffee chat with, God, I forgot his name. Matt, I believe, in the brand team.
Matt Salek, yeah.
Yeah, so I just didn't want to like say a name and be like, that person doesn't work here. So I just wanted to double check. Okay, so I had a coffee chat with him, and I just wanted to make sure that that is considered. So again, kind of similar to like the we know these changes are coming longer term. And I just, again, I don't want to reinvent the wheel at some point.
Yeah.
And so I just want to,
Are we going to get any insights into those as they're coming along, or is it going to be like 6 months from now? It's like, surprise, here's everything changing all.
Well, I talked to Matt very briefly. Sorry, Javi, to jump in. So what did he say? I asked him just how things were going. So they're still very early stage in discovery. So they're almost at the same point that we are relative to our work streams. So it's hard to, if we were to stop and wait for them, we'd be probably waiting until, April or May. So this kind of loops back into, the vision alignment, at least in terms of technology that Javi was just talking about, that if we can have some sort of an infrastructure set up with our JavaScript, any changes that we can make to code would be pretty easy then to replicate in code, because they'd be built in a framework that supports that. And then that ties into another part of the design system, which is more around the documentation / versioning of things, that if and when we did decide to release new updates to the library and teams need to consume those at whatever point they are in their work stream, versioning is a way that we can help manage that, so that if someone is really close to a deadline or a launch, they don't have to adopt new styles, which would really just, stifle work and put the cat amongst the pigeons almost. So it's definitely, like, I would meet Matt fairly regularly, and then there was a switch on the team structure. So I think we can be aware of it, but it's definitely something that's on our radar. And we're going to have to align anyway, because the core foundation, or the core, the basis almost for any kind of a design system, really, like the very first, like the foundations is the brand. It's supposed to communicate brand consistency, so we have to have a strong relationship with them. But they're at such an early stage that there's not really much we can get out of them that's any use.
So probably no action items for now. Is that safe to say?
No.
yeah.
Okay.
It feels weird, at least from my perspective, to say, like, to gain alignment, we have to have more meetings, because I don't inherently believe that meetings create alignment. But to some point, at some point, I think we have to just communicate. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I just have a personal vendetta against the word meeting. So maybe I should just call it something. Yeah, that was my thought on that.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that one. Sounds like it's going to be an ongoing thing. That is it for now. I mean, unless anyone has anything else they want to add. All right, we're done.